Beloved souls, I come once again to deliver a message to the world. Today I wish to talk about the personal struggles that many have in coming to understand and to enact the desires of their soul in contradiction to what is often the desires of the mind. When one begins a spiritual journey, a journey to know truth, to understand their own inner selves, there are often many barriers in the way of this journey. It is like a scale within each one of you, a balance beam. On one side there are many factors and aspects of the human condition living within the individual. These things may be rife with a sense of guilt, of shame, of apathy, of anger, resentment, judgment, those many things that are of this human condition. On the other side of this balance beam is a true desire of the soul to seek God, to be fulfilled in its purpose and being which God has placed within that soul. Because of the desire and power to influence contained within the soul, within the mind there is a yearning and a sense that all is not in balance or correct. That there needs to be a sense of awakening, of change, of coming to a place of harmony. With most individuals in your world, there is inharmony. Depending upon the personality and the life experiences of that individual and the conditions that they have inherited from their forefathers, that depth of inharmony may be great or may be less so. Yet, that individual chooses to incarnate into the world at this particular time in order to continue the flow of progress of the soul which comes with the dawning of personality and identity which comes with incarnation into the material world. But as I have said several times, the conditions which the newborn babe may inherit, not only as it comes into the flesh but also as it first incarnates into the fetus, a great many conditions and incrustations which immediately take effect upon the individual. The journey which the newborn begins is fraught with many perils and situations and conditions which have been put upon that individual from the beginning. So while one may live in a family that is loving and caring and provides the physical necessities of the child, there will be the overlapping of conditions that have been brought upon this particular family through the inherent conditions of ancestors from the past, plus the cultural conditions that come with one's life in a particular country. Many biases are taught by the parents and absorbed by the child as they grow up within certain cultural norms and expectations. Thus the burden that the individual carries when they are mature and set forth to live their own lives is great. The mind is filled with many ideas, and there is much within the individual that is contrary to joy and happiness. There are some who, for the most part, escape these conditions, who have a personality, an inclination towards joy and lightheartedness, but these individuals are few and far between. Almost from the beginning, the child is given a series of expectations and a great many burdens which influence the perceptions and desires of the child. Upon adulthood, these things which are deeply embedded within have a great influence upon the direction and choices of that individual moving forward in their lives. Within each soul, there is a desire to be free from those inharmonious conditions, those conditions which are not part of God's laws of creation, God's expectations and opportunities that He has placed before each and every one of His beloved children. Yet, the soul persists. The soul, if inclined to pray to God, will find some answer, some expression of God's touch of love upon them and guidance forward so they may have the opportunity to grow spiritually. Of course, it is up to the individual to listen to these promptings both from within and from God. Indeed, some do and some will find themselves upon a journey of discovery towards light and harmony. That journey may take many different permutations and expressions as the mind sorts through the various experiences that are sought out to affirm their spiritual quest. This path meanders through the maze of the variety of spiritual opportunities and teachings that exist in your world. As you well know, the vast majority of these teachings are that which lead to the perfection of the natural man and the way of the natural love. There is only one way that leads to the fulfillment of the truth of the way of divine love. But there are times when the individual may stumble across this experience of knowing God in this way and receiving the blessing of His love. God opens many doors of opportunity for the individual to seek light and to be in the light. When the aspects of soul longing and desire along with an openness of the mind come together and are in alignment, then there is the possibility of this experience to take place. What the individual makes of this experience, how their minds and those things within the mind which have been conditioned in a certain way with certain beliefs integrate this experience is of a very random nature. Few will come to a clear and pristine understanding of the dynamics of divine love because very few in the world know of this truth in the way that you know. If the soul is deeply touched by this experience of love and continues to pray to God and long for this experience to return, indeed, it will, time and time again. There are some who pass into spirit after a long life who are surprised to realize how this longing has made within them a bright light which is to their great advantage in the spirit world. So the mind does not necessarily need to know the words and understanding as you do, beloved souls, though the soul must indeed have the opportunity to open to the gift of God's love flowing within it. The vast majority of individuals who are receiving divine love do not know this clarity and understanding within their minds, but are indeed yearning for this gift and receiving the benefits, blessings that come with their prayers. But how much easier it would be upon these individuals if they were to know with clarity and adopt with faith this simple knowledge of how one receives the great gift of divine love and to understand the process, the steps which the soul must inevitably take in order to grow in divine love and to express the love within their souls in the world with a clear understanding of its benefits and God's desire that each individual may become a bright light, a channel of love for Him. Many souls struggle with darkness. Even those souls who have found God's love in whatever way this may come to them often struggle with dark conditions within them. The mind is a repository of many patterns and ideas which have been embedded within that mind at an early age and continue to exercise its influence upon the individual. As I have said, these things may encompass dark thoughts and feelings which are not conducive to spiritual growth and soul awakening. Rather, they are the things which muffle and hide the soul from one's self in a conscious way. The struggle comes when one endeavors to uncover their own soul and to truly know their own soul. A soul that has been hidden away by layers upon layers of thoughts and conditions, which are contrary and difficult so that the soul may not emerge and may not be heard or known. Yet, with faith, with a true desire for God, God in many instances will assist the individual in pushing aside these barriers and coming to a place of grace, upliftment, of feeling and knowing this love in all its unique and wondrous qualities flowing towards the individual. This is accomplished by His blessings through the Holy Spirit as well as the assistance of the celestial angels to help clear away the clouds of doubt and darkness, of fear and unloving ways which are so common in your world. When these things come into alignment, the earnest prayer from the soul given through the openness of the mind allowing the forces of God, the laws of God to be enacted thereby producing a conscious and very real experience of the individual, then their faith and understanding of these things grow. If they are allowed to be repeated multiple times, then indeed the securing of this knowledge, the building of great faith and the knowing of the soul is great and sure. In this way, one becomes secured upon the divine path, that path which will ultimately lead to at-onement with God. But, along the way, there are trial and tribulations, tests and divergent conditions which make the journey a difficult one, but one that continues as the soul persists and the individual accepts their fate, which is to come to know God and to truly come to know themselves. Individuals, strengthened by the love that is pouring within their soul and have the strength to overcome these multiple barriers which are invariably within every individual. Free will has a great bearing upon how quickly this journey goes towards the purification of the soul, for the incrustations around the soul must be lifted. This is done often in a gradual way. At times, in ways that are not known or felt, but at other times, great waves of grief and longing and disturbance come to the individual. This great distress often brings a deep concern for its source. Many are confused at the beginning of this intense experience and the outcomes of a soul engaged in its purification process brought on by the divine love. As is the case with most in your world, there is a spiritual immaturity within the individual and a sense that all will be sunshine and roses, as you say, that there will be no struggle, but that the journey towards this utopian ideal, which is often within the mind, will be easily obtained, that the divine love will ensure that all be smooth, that there will be no rocky roads ahead but rather a clear and swift passage, which will in time lead to the individual's incorporation into the divine heavens, the celestial heavens. So it comes as a shock to many when their first episode of soul purification, the release of incrustations which are essentially memories and feelings around the soul, are felt and experienced directly. For some there comes a disillusionment that their ideals have not been met, these expectations of the mind which often perceive things in black and white, other than the truth that all things are the result of shades of gray and shades of light. Progression is the transition from the grayness to the light, but how is that transition accomplished? For those who walk upon the natural love path, this is accomplished by a great deal of effort expressed through the mind recalibrating thoughts and essentially relearning ideas which are more in alignment with spiritual life and spiritual purity. This is a very long and arduous path, but one which is taken by most in your world who are serious about their spiritual awakening, because this to the mind is more satisfying than to capitulate to the soul and allow the soul to lead the individual toward spiritual awakening. The soul is a great mystery to the mind. It is such a different place, a different level of awareness than that of the mind which has been taught and developed in its linear thinking, intellectual processes, structured concepts, and paradigms that are built through the education and experience of the individual. Much energy and thought have gone into these paradigms and they are valued. They become the great anchor of reality for the individual. When that position is challenged by something so radically new and unexperienced as that of the soul coming to the fore and indicating to the individual a different form of consciousness, then conflict ensues as a result. This is where doubt grows within the garden of the mind, seeking to discredit what it truly perceives as a powerful aspect of its own consciousness which has been long ignored. So the beginnings of the struggle begin with the mind refusing to believe and acknowledge the experiences of the soul. These experiences are often accredited to the imagination, that the mind is indeed fabricating these illusions, and that if one is to pursue this course, there is a deep fear that the mind will be lost in the illusions of these fantasies. But as the soul persists and the individual continues in prayer and comes to a place of a sort of equity between the mind and the soul, a compromise, if you will, between the consciousness of the soul and the consciousness of the mind, then this stability in anchoring serves to open the door to the soul's purification, the settling of the mind and the further balancing of these two aspects of the individual. This may take a long and arduous journey, but for some who are gifted and sensitive, it may not be so difficult. If the individual is strongly intuitive and has an open mind, then understanding the soul becomes an easier prospect, for it is in the intuition that one comes to see the functioning of the soul. The soul does not derive truth or experience through the gradual building of experience, thought and education. Rather, these things come in a flow, a wave of completeness and beauty. There is, as we call it, a knowing of the soul that may come to each individual. That experience of knowing comes with a sense of expansion, of truly understanding. This experience overflows into the mind and becomes a conscious thing, provided that the soul is anchored within the consciousness of the individual and there is a ready acceptance of these experiences. In acceptance comes the capacity for the mind to integrate these experiences that have emerged from the soul and which essentially have been a gift from God to that soul. As the soul grows in the divine love, so these faculties of perception, these abilities to know truth, to experience truth in these unique ways, which are, by the way, unique for each individual, then the process of true soul awakening begins, for the mind then is a ready participant and eager partner in this process. But this does not guarantee an easy passage, for the soul must also release its burdens. In doing so, it is hoped that the mind will comply with this release and also take up the new perceptions and perspectives that may come with this release and apply them to one's conscious and material life. This too can be a great struggle, for often these things of the soul challenge the old patterns of the mind. The mind must then come to grips with its error and those patterns which are not in harmony with this growing light within and from the love that is blossoming within the individual. So these struggles contribute to the continued and ongoing purification and cleansing of the individual. There is much effort that needs to be made by those who are serious about receiving divine love and living this love. I have heard it said that many have the ambition to transition from the material world directly to the celestial heavens. This is an admirable ambition, but one that is naively taken, and is often a way by which one may mask their true condition. For instead of humbly coming to their souls and asking God to cleanse and to purify their soul through divine love and to accept this process of purification wholeheartedly, the mind often wishes to take precedence and to work its own ways of making right that which is within them, thereby circumventing the processes of the soul which will bring about these purifications and healings. It is very unlikely that an individual will come to that place of such purity and alignment with God that they may transition directly into the celestial heavens. It is not impossible, but indeed it would take a great deal of effort, a great deal indeed, to overcome the multiple barriers, the inherited conditions and those many conditions which have laid upon the individual that are not in harmony with love and in need of releasing, so come forth as a clear channel between your soul and God to receive copious amounts of divine love. Since there are billions of individuals upon your planet, the possibility that 1 or 2 or 3 may indeed accomplish this in a lifetime upon your world is somewhat feasible, but I would not hold up your hopes and I would not waste time with such ambitions. Rather, take each day at a time, seeking to receive the blessings of God's love within your soul, seeking to allow the purification of your soul to be as it will in the inevitable process of soul awakening and realignment, as well as mindful dedications to a way of thinking and doing which is more in harmony with love. In accordance with the conditions of your world, one day may be more challenging than the next, for each day is different and each day presents its own challenges, its own tests, and its own opportunities for reconciliation and healing and expression in light. It is indeed a building process, the building of the soul, redoing and remaking the soul from the image of God to the substance. It is a tremendous undertaking. It is also one that requires diligence, persistence, consistency, and dedication, but the rewards are great, beloved souls, as I have said many times. The rewards are great. It is time for this world to accept that indeed the starvation of the soul is an issue and a challenge that must be focused upon. This thing will come. These changes are inevitable. This knowledge must come to every individual. This truth must be at least acknowledged by every individual whether they choose to follow this way or not. At the very least, they must come to know that there is this opportunity provided to them from God, that God's love may clear away all the barriers, the darkness, the struggles, and the pain that the individual carries in their present-day life. So I beseech you, beloved souls, to embrace your struggles, to see your struggles as the road to redemption as well as the necessity to release those things that are not in harmony with love. They come in waves. They come in spurts and starts. They come as the result of certain events in your life and opportunities that God has placed before you. They come because it is necessary to confront the darkness within each individual. It is necessary to release that darkness with all humility and faith to God and say, "Dear God, cleanse this from me and in its place put your love." In this way, you will have stepped forth in great leaps and bounds, and you prepare yourselves for further awakening, for the development of further gifts to emerge and further joy to be a part of your heart. Indeed, the mind must learn to accept that it is subservient to the soul. Without this subservience, a true and pure channel of God's love and will cannot be forged. Each of you who are serious about this journey also harbors the desire to be a clear and beautiful channel of love for God, to assist your brothers and sisters in the work for the redemption, the saving, and salvation of your world. So you must be brave and strong, clear and accepting that not every day will be a day of joy and enlightenment, that some days may carry with it the awareness of the burden of darkness that is within you. In that awareness, may you come and pray and ask God for healing through the inflowing of His love to that place that is entered and dark and in pain. So this process goes. It was not meant to be this way. In the beginning, your first parents were given the opportunity to continue with their awakening and their spiritual progression through receiving this great gift of divine love, but unfortunately, they did not accept this proposal from God. Rather, they went their own way, and ever since that day, the struggle has ensued, the darkness has proliferated, and the conditions of humanity have been difficult. The labors have been long, the struggles intense, yet through all of this, humanity persists. Through all of this, the desire of the soul persists and wishes for you to acknowledge its inner truth and desire to be with God. So many of you will indeed be with God. Some of you will turn away in frustration, for you do not wish to look deeper. Many will gaze upon you and wonder how you may be of this light, how you may have come to that place of greater peace, of joy, of love. In this way, you will be God's instruments, though often imperfect, but indeed you will serve a purpose. You will come to be God's instruments in the world. In time, it is our desire, and often yours, to be that pure channel of love. We work diligently to assist you upon that journey of awakening, purification, and the realignment of both your mind and soul with the truth of God's love. We will continue to do so, beloveds. We will continue to do so, always persisting, always with you. Indeed, our desire is to help humanity, and whatever soul may come and desire this may indeed receive the benefits, the upliftment, the blessings that God wishes to give in great abundance. In unerring ways, in unconditional love, so He gives to His children always. So you may benefit from His gifts and His blessings. May God bless you upon that journey, beloved souls. I am with you upon that journey, as are many who reside within the celestial kingdom. We will journey forth together, brothers and sisters all, beloved by God and indeed part of this great family of love. God bless you, beloveds, and thank you for listening to what I have to say today in regards to your great struggles of the soul. I have deep compassion for you all. It is not an easy life, but indeed there are flecks of light everywhere within your life that will bring joy, that will bring peace, that will bring love. This will grow and persist in your life provided you are willing to pursue the truth and path of divine love. God bless you, beloveds. God bless you.